Hey guys, Mustang here bringing a Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so the next Super EZA is finally upon us. It is the STR Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta. This is one that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. I've always been a fan of Super Saiyan 3, and this guy very early on, like before the game really started to get super hard, like even pre-EZA, this guy was one of those like go-to defensive units. And just always had really good use out of this guy. Very much been looking forward to his Super EZA. His EZA wasn't really all that crazy, like on release. And the big thing with him is that he's just been a unit that has damage reduction and didn't have any defense, right? So obviously his leader skill and super attack remain unchanged, so he doesn't really have any crazy effects when it comes to that. But his passive, of course, is the thing that has been reworked. So Key 3, attack and defense 200%. When attacking with 12 or more key, he gets 200% attack and 100% defense. For 10 turns from his entry turn, 150% defense, high chance to crit, and damage reduction of 80%. And then from the 11th turn onwards, it drops to 50% damage reduction. But he also loses that defense and the crit chance. So you really don't want to be bringing him into events that are going to go for super long. If the enemy is stunned, he gets an extra 200% attack and gets guaranteed crits. And then when there's a super class enemy, he gets an additional attack that has a high chance to become a super. If it's an extreme class enemy, he gets a guaranteed additional super. So that's about it. Nothing too fancy, very bare bones. The major thing is that they have given him some actual start of turn defense with the 200%. But as you can see, like even on a 220 lead team, he is only rocking 343k defense in slot 1. Now I say only, but the thing obviously you have to think about is the fact that the main thing is that he has 80% damage reduction, right? So even in some of the events that are hitting really hard straight out of the gate, if we take like a 5 million damage super and then we take off 80%, that leaves 1 million damage. Now obviously that means this guy would still take like 650k from that super in slot 1 pre-super. But considering lots of units in the game just die to a 5 million damage super, I think that's one of the things we have to think about. Like, are there some units that could tank that super better than him? Yes. But are there many units in the game that can slot 1 tank a super better than him? Not really. And I think it's one of these things we're going to have to bring it up, I guess, every time one of these units comes out now. It always comes back to the discussion about Super Saiyan 3 Goku from the anniversary, right? Because they're going to be on a lot of the same teams, things like Power Beyond Super Saiyan. Obviously they're on like the anniversary LR's teams, because regardless of whether they're getting the full leader skill or not, they're both pure Saiyan characters. Super Saiyan 3, of course. They're going to be on a lot of teams together, and that Goku's obviously going to be really, really good to run with this Vegeta, because his biggest issue is, whilst he does have a lot of damage reduction, he doesn't have the craziest actual defense. So of course, once you get Super Saiyan 3 Goku transformed into Super Saiyan 4, he's giving 70% extra defense, as well as giving 10% extra damage reduction. So all of a sudden, that means he's got 90% damage reduction, which turns that 5 million damage super into 500k. And then if he had, what, 340 odd with no defensive support on this rotation, so you throw a 70% defense support into that as well, as soon as his defense hits 500k, he takes double-digit damage from a 5 million damage super attack. So I think it's one of those things where, unless you're doing like the battle-hardened foes, which there's not that many fights where the very first phase is hitting that hard. Like even the ones that hit hard straight away on the first phase, it's normally 3 to 4 million max. By the time you get to the stage in an event where the boss is actually hitting for 5 million, you should be built up and transformed like with the Goku at that point. Especially if you take a hit like early on and manage to get the early transformation, if you lose some HP, obviously that can be very helpful as well. And then yeah, he's going to be looking pretty good. So defensive support for him is probably going to be the biggest thing for making him look better. And now that he's got at least some start of turn defense himself, it means that units that are giving that support and giving the extra defense to characters are going to be giving him that little bit more, because he's got more to build from. So like here, for example, Goku, we know pre-transformed gives 50% to Power Beyond Super Saiyan. So he's at 350k start of turn. So if we take a look at where is the damage for the this Rosé boss, because this Rosé boss we know super attacks in slot 1 quite a lot. He does also lower defense, which is awkward for this Vegeta. But where are we? Future Trunks Saga. Yeah, he does 2.5 million. So if we get the calculator back up here, so it's 252. It's 2,520,000 is what his super attack does. He doesn't raise attack on super. He will get a 60% buff after he receives 8 attacks, but obviously that's not for this turn. So we take off 80%, and that drops it down to 500k, and his start of turn defense is 350. So if he didn't lower defense, him super attacking Vegeta here, it's like 150k, give or take the super versus extreme modifier as well. So I mean, he could still actually hit pretty hard here in slot 1 with this super. So let's see. Go ahead and grab these. I mean, it kind of comes down to the same thing as like the Daima Vegeta, where I'm intrigued as to why they didn't give this guy guard. Considering that's where you're going to run him anyway, he could have literally had in his passive like guards if he's in slot 1, and then, you know. And we do get the dodge though, which is kind of funny, because obviously as a slot 1 defensive tank, the best build for him is full dodge, right? I mean, he's hitting like an 11 million attack stat, which, considering this is a guy who has never really done damage and is not about doing damage, I mean, I'll take an 11 million attack stat for a unit that is just there to tank. Because obviously, like, it should go without saying that when it comes to tanking normals, he's going to be perfectly fine, right? Even bosses that are doing like 1.5 million damage normals, or even 2 million to be fair, like a 2 million damage normal attack, once you take off that 80%, it's doing like 400k, and he's got 300 odd without any support start of turn. So he is a unit that definitely needs that little bit of support to really shine. And obviously, if you're someone who doesn't have the Super Saiyan 3 to Super Saiyan 4 Goku, then he's obviously not going to look as good. But the more supports you have like around him, obviously the better he is going to appear, because the percentage, like I say, to work from. This is one of the things that you have to remember when it comes to everything like damage reduction and support and stuff like that, all being percentage based. Like, it's no point having a unit on the rotation that's giving 100% extra defensive support if the unit has like 50k start of turn defense, right? Because then that 100% is only another 50k. So the fact that he's got a lot more start of turn defense now means he obviously gets a lot more of a buff from the units that are providing support. So once that Super Saiyan 4 Goku comes out and we get the 70% extra defense and 10% extra damage reduction, then this guy's going to be looking like an absolute beast, which, in terms of defense, which I know for some people is like a drawback, that you have to wait for the Goku to come out. And obviously if you're someone who doesn't have Goku, because that's the thing with the anniversary, even though we had Pity and we had the Purunga Wish, like, the Goku was obviously not the top priority for a lot of people. I'd rank him at around 3rd, right? You got the Vegito, you got the Gogeta, and then you got Goku. Those are like the top 3 units to pick with the stone or with your pity coins, depending on how your summons went. So I know a lot of people, you might have pulled one of the fusions, so you used the stone to get the other one. As long as you had a few stones going into the anniversary gave out enough stones so that most people should have been able to hit Pity. I think you needed like close to 1,000 stones going in, but realistically should have been saving for the anniversary. I mean, I didn't save for the anniversary, but obviously I buy stones, right? But I managed to hit the Pity in part 2 without going super deep into the banners, right? I did like maybe 1,000 stones in part 1 and then like 600 stones in part 2. Of course, I'm in a position where I get a lot of the bonus SSRs to trade in for coins because I have all the units in the game. I've been playing the game for so long, so I know not everyone's in the same boat, but they gave out a lot of stones. We got the wish. Like, a lot of people are going to have that Goku, and it's funny how many of the units that have come out since part 1 of the anniversary, whether it be new units or EZAs, that all just look significantly better if this Goku is around on the team. So if we go ahead and transform here, the funny thing is, of course, we will be cancelling out the enemy super by using the Giant 8 transformation, so he won't be able to super Vegeta in slot 1 here anyway. But it is what it is. So he's going to super the Great Ape here. Great Ape, of course, has basically no defense. Great 8 won't kill, which is good. But yeah, I mean, the fact that he has the stun, which can obviously be useful for the hardened battles against formidable foes, because remember, that's going to get some new stages. Is it tomorrow or Monday? That's got new stages coming, and in the first phases, you can often stun. And then, of course, Vegeta gets that big attack buff and guaranteed crits if the enemy is stunned. So, I mean, realistically, he's not going to be a damage dealer, like I say, anyway. So, you don't want any crit in his hidden potential. He's an STR unit, so obviously he's going to have 5. But then you want to give him the rest dodge and then some additional. Additional's not really that important either, because it's not like he's raising defense if he does an extra super or anything like that. But that's the thing as well to mention is when it comes to these like big 5 million damage supers and stuff like that, you know, the enemy, some events they do, of course, but the enemy isn't always super attacking in slot 1. And the thing you have to remember is that this guy is getting an extra 100% defense when he super attacks. So bear in mind here, that means his defense is going to just over 700k, which means he is tanking a 5 million damage super for double-digit damage after he attacks. The problem is, of course, most teams, and especially in this meta of how tough some of the events can be, teams need a solid slot 1 tank that can take a super if it's literally the first thing that the boss does in the turn. And this guy, he's going to be able to survive some of these kind of big attacks, but I wouldn't necessarily use the word tank. Like, to me, if I say like, oh yeah, this unit will tank the super, I mean that we take like less than half your overall HP. Because with the strength of teams now, with the leader skill and how strong units are post-supering, most of the time, units will tank after they've attacked, normal attacks for double digits. So as long as the first unit on the rotation whose, you know, job is to hold down that defensive role in slot 1, as long as you don't lose too much HP, everybody else on the rest of the rotation takes double-digit damage from the remaining normal attacks. So, I mean, realistically, this guy is doing his job even if you lose like 80% of your HP when he gets supered. Unless, of course, because there are some exceptions always, unless you're against a boss who does multiple supers in a turn or does AoEs and stuff like that, right? That can obviously make things a little bit more difficult. So, because yeah, this Zamasu has a 4.8 million damage super attack. So 4.8 million means that he doesn't raise attack, does he? No. So minus 90% now that we've got Vegeta with Goku means that his super does 480k, plus there'll be the extreme versus super modifier, and Vegeta has close to 400k defense. So I think what I'll do here is, because there's quite a few nice attacks in slot 1, let's go ahead and use the actual Ghost Usher ability here for Gogeta. So obviously this isn't a showcase for the team, we're not trying to like win the event as quickly or decisively as possible, so we don't really care about that. Let's go ahead and let's use this opportunity to actually get a defensive stack in with you, since we haven't done any of that yet. I guess we could go ahead and do the same for you, get a defensive stack with you, and then yeah, we'll grab those for you. So I mean, the thing is, this Vegeta, he's definitely going to be a decent unit for teams that need the slot 1 tank. I like the fact that we've gotten a few different slot 1s that are going to work on different teams. Like we've got the Giant 8 Vegeta, the Tech 1 EZA, right, which will help out for the team Giant 8 power. We've got this Vegeta's for like Super Saiyan 3 or Pure Saiyan or Vegeta family. Super Saiyan 3 Daima Vegeta's in a kind of similar position. Beast Gohan obviously still around. He's on the Tech Vegito lead, but not on the Gogeta lead. Like the teams kind of have a few different tanks to choose from. Tech Broly obviously still around as an extreme unit, but of course being a Pure Saiyan, he's on a lot of these teams as well. So yeah, we have a lot of different options for slot 1 tanks now. And I do think that, especially if you are doing the Battle Hardened Foes event, remembering of course that they can all be attack lowered as well, this Vegeta with the stun going to be very, very useful. So it'd be interesting to see, because of course he gets some of his 200% extra attack. So you think if he's doing like a 12 million or 11 million attack stat when the enemy's not stunned, I don't know if the attack stat itself is like what all the calculations go into to give the attack stat. I don't think it's an extra 200% of the attack stat that we see. So I don't think he's going up to like 30 million, but he's going to be hitting that a bit harder, and of course getting a guaranteed crit, which, as I say, is more so a nice little bonus than anything else, because we're not really too worried about him doing damage, right? So now this Vegeta, I mean, we could, if we really wanted to here, go ahead and use the Gogeta active skill, but I kind of don't want to use that on this turn. I want to see Vegeta actually tank just with his passive, right? So this guy, I mean, it's turn 7 for him, and he's got 265k start of turn defense, so he would be a huge liability if we just leave him as Vegeta in slot 3. So we will go ahead and fuse. I should have done that first anyway if I was going to do it, just to make sure the super attack was in slot 1, but it is, so we're fine. And yeah, I won't use the active skill, but we know it gives a multiplicative 54% buff, so his defense would go up to about 600k, and then he would just be tanking everything for double-digit damage. But obviously we're not about that here. We want to see what he actually tanks with his start of turn defense with Goku, with the 90% damage reduction. So obviously he tanks the normal attacks for double digits. That is what we would expect. Yeah, but Gogeta obviously going to be fine as well. But then here's the super. So again, remember, this does 4.8 million normally. So 161k. Like I say, I will take that. On a team with the amount of HP that we have, that puts us at 65% HP. And then, like I say, no one else for the rest of the turn is now going to take any damage, because all of the following normals for everyone on this rotation are going to be double-digit damage. And then that gives us a good spot to come back from when it comes to getting heals and stuff like that, right? So Goku can get his super off here, get the guaranteed crit. I mean, so overall, I think Vegeta is good. I feels like they held back on him a little bit, I guess, but when we think about the counts for like a 5 million damage super, and him still being able to take, like, you know, enough damage, essentially, that you don't die. And that's, like I say, the most important thing. Obviously, if you get left on like double-digit damage HP, we would not consider that good tanking, because whoever it is on the rotation, as units can't take 0 damage in Dokkan unless you negate a super rather than just tank it. You have to take double-digit damage and not 0. So obviously, even on a team like this, if he's taking like 800k from a super, then that would be bad. But realistically, even with just the 80% damage reduction, like even a 6 million damage super, if we take off 80%, is 1.2 million. So that's kind of the region where he would, without any kind of support or anything, if he just ate that in slot 1, like turn 1, then probably would die. Maybe not if it was a super class enemy, so they're not getting the extra damage. But yeah, he's obviously not a character that is designed for these craziest bosses, which I think is a shame, because when you think about what his kit is and what he's supposed to be used for, it does kind of make you wonder. It's like, well, what are we supposed to be using him for, right? What is his design? What is the point of the unit? And realistically, it is to be a slot 1 tank. So then when you get into a situation where you can't tank on that turn because he'll take too much damage, if we get to a point where the boss is hitting like that hard, then it's like, oh, well, why is he not doing the role that he's essentially designed for? So it does make you wonder with some of the super EZAs, like especially when he kind of ruined the bar for super EZAs, but you think about like Int Buhan and how absolutely ridiculous he is as a damage dealer. He's still probably like the hardest hitting extreme unit on that, like on most of his setups, to be fair. So if they can get away with that, because he's quite good defensively as well, to be fair, he'll be tanking supers even like 4 mil after he attacks. He's just absolutely cracked like across the board. So why, if we got the Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, like even if he's doing very little damage, he's supposed to be a defensive unit. Like he could have had guard, he could have had a bit more than just the 200% defense. You know, it's not like we haven't seen characters getting like 300%. Or even again, like it doesn't. I don't really mind restrictions if they're restrictions that don't like really matter. And obviously you could argue then why give them in the first place. But like, why doesn't he have like guard and an extra 50%, like, or even 100%? 50% is a bit low, but like guard and an extra 100% defense before attacking, right? And then even if that means after he attacks, he loses guard and loses that 100% defense, then it wouldn't matter, because with the kit the way it is now, post super attacking, he has more than enough defense to be able to tank some of these attacks, right? Like, he's got like 600 to 700k after supering. So that means even that like 6 million damage super attack we were talking about, that's going to hit him for like 600k at most, which is still a lot, but if you're on full HP with some of these big crazy teams now, that's enough for you to survive and then still bounce back, right? So I don't get why they didn't make him stronger defensively when realistically that's all he's like good for. And of course, you also have to remember he has the 10 turn restriction. So obviously this video, the whole point is to showcase him, so we haven't been using some of the big gun like active skills and stuff, which we could do, and it would make the event end faster, which I guess is kind of the point. But you know, it's going to be turn 10 on the next turn, so we're going to have we're going to hit a point where his defense is not going to be vital. Like after this next appearance, he just doesn't work as a defensive unit anymore, and he'll just get absolutely crushed. But the point is to have won the event by then, and then realistically with some of the units that we have around, like the Gogetas and stuff like that, then obviously that is going to be possible. And on that turn with the Gogeta active skill, as that Gogeta active skill does for many units in the game, like he's going to look even better with that extra defense. It'd be crazy to see. I wonder what kind of attacks that he would hit on the turn where you use the AGL Gogeta active skill and then have like the enemy being stunned, so he's getting the extra attack for that as well. I imagine he would hit incredibly hard, but there's obviously not going to be many situations where that will come up. But either way, here we are. I think, do we still have a scouter, or is he actually not supering this turn? But yeah, I mean, he's tanking all the normals for double digits, which is what we'd expect. I mean, any unit that's supposed to be a tank, supposed to be a defensive unit, if they weren't tanking normals for double digit damage, then obviously we would be more than disappointed, I think you could say. But yeah, so I would love Zamasu to super attack now, because the fact that Zamasu does a 4.8 mil after Vegeta attacks, like if he gets super attacked now by Zamasu, he takes double digit damage, which, you know, like I say, there are a lot of units in the game now that can tank these big supers after they've attacked. Vegeta's role is supposed to be that he's a unit that we can put in slot 1 and tank attacks, you know, before we've actually gotten to attack, and it's one of the most valuable roles on any team. Like, you can't go into some of these tough events without a unit that can tank hits in slot 1. Otherwise you've got to get godly RNG when it comes to things like dodging and stuff like that, right? So I don't know, let me know what you guys think of Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta down below in the comment section. I certainly don't think that he's bad, I just don't think he's anywhere near as good as he could have been. And this is the problem with a lot of EZAs and new units nowadays, where like, why can't they make these little tweaks to make these units better when it still wouldn't put them on the level of the other units that are in his class, I guess you would say? Like, because basically what I'm saying, like, if you think about Buhan again, and I know he's an exception because he's busted, but Tech Cell's really good, STR Gogeta's really good. Like, STR Gogeta is a unit that can also tank really hard hitting attacks because he's got really high defense and some damage reduction after he's attacked. But he's there to be a damage dealer, provide a little bit of support. He kind of does a little bit of everything, but is really solid around the board. Whereas this Vegeta, he doesn't do enough damage to be, you know, like, oh, well, he's the damage dealer of the team, right? No, he's the defensive unit of the team. So, you know, why has he not got something a little bit more? Because, like I say, even just giving him guard, even if it was conditional to being in slot 1 or something, it wouldn't suddenly make him the best TUR. Although I suppose it depends on how you rate units for different... I know some people would say, right, if a unit is like an unkillable slot 1 tank, then you could argue they are the best TUR because that is such an important role for certain teams. But I don't think many people would necessarily argue that that would make him the best TUR hands down. But it would make him significantly better, and it would make him better at his role, which is to be a slot 1 tank. So I don't know, let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. But like I say, I don't think he's that bad at all. I think we'll get some use out of him for sure. He only really needs to start worrying when it gets to when the bosses are hitting for like 4, 5, 6 million, which is not every single event. And as long as the boss doesn't super in slot 1, he's fine. There's a lot of teams running around now with scouter abilities. So, you know, I think he's going to be perfectly fine. But he could have been that little bit better to really secure his spot on the leaderboard and kind of age well as well. But I don't know. I like him, but he could have been better. Let me know what you guys think down below. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the link down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.